we were driving along and saw a pretty fit guy and stopped and offered him a ride. And it was less than a 2 minute ride to the bus station that he wanted. And we were like, do you want to go to the motel instead? And he hesitated. So we knew that we had him, took him to the motel. And the motels are pretty great because you don't see the people. You're faced with like a panel, and they like put the key under the panel, and you take the key and you go to your room. And yeah, so we had fun then. But there were several of these occasions when we traveled together as well in Curitiba. I remember another incident, another encounter, and there were others. There were many others. But eventually we met Jean. Jean was a French guy, and he was perfect. He was the perfect third side of the triangle. He paid attention to us equally. In fact, to the point of annoyance where I might want to leave the two of them together, but he wouldn't allow it. He would always reach out to me to try to bring me back into bed. But he was an artist. We visited him at his studio, and he had paintings and paint everywhere. And it was just alchemy, man. It was just, we got each other and we worked very well together. Jean, man. Counting the cost of being a disciple. These people again. These wrathful people again. So, everything's great. I am killing myself smoking Marlboro Reds because JR smoked Marlboro Reds, and once you're smoking Reds, you can't smoke nothing else because you don't get the same impact in your throat, right? And drinking wine and drunken in ourselves and seducing people and taking them back to the apartment, and me sleeping in his apartment, sometimes him sleeping in mine. I just remembered for some reason one time we had a disagreement and I wouldn't let him in, and he went for his toolbox and took the door off of the apartment. I was so into these grandiose gestures. So of course I gave you peace because wow, like I was never treated like that before. Like he was determined to be toxic. Because nowadays we know these words, right? But back then that wasn't toxicity. That was him being romantic, okay? So what is I was saying now? That yeah, at the height of the relationship, everything good, I was met on campus again. The same way I was met in Barbados. And I knew that it was these same people from the Bridgetown Church of Christ. Only it would be the Brasilia Church of Christ. So for me, this was God calling me back and gave me a second chance. And I started the Bible studies. I told them that I was already a member in Barbados, and that for them also was a sign. And I, of course, got to the final study, which is Count the Cost, where you have to count the cost of being a disciple of Christ. And of course, one of the things that I had to do was then end my relationship with JR, which was tough. It was tough, man. But it was also a true test of how I wanted to proceed. And so I did it. And 2 weeks later, JR was with somebody else because he's also one of these people who cannot be alone. He's always in a relationship. And I remember being so mad because the acoustics in this place now, in this apartment building, were such that I could sometimes hear them whooping in the shower upstairs. Like it was crazy and it would drive me insane, but you can't have it both ways, right? I remember confronting him and telling him, man, you know, love, love, but 2 days later, me exaggerating, and I wanted him to fight me. I pushed him, I think. I wanted him to fight me. I had that energy. I wanted to fight, and he wouldn't fight me. He would not fight me. And soon after that, I moved out to get away from having to see him show up with this guy and just be with this guy. And and then I was in this group again for about a year again. Although it took me some time to be reinstated because the same priest that horned his wife and was whooping down the church, Christ in Bridgetown, treated me like I was filth, and he would not, because I had returned to Barbados at one point with the intention of being reinstated, and he would not see me. And I think the idea was that if I really wanted it, I would do anything and everything to see him and to beg back, right? So I was eventually reinstated by the church in Brasilia, and I was again a part of something and again happy until the same problems cropped up, which were the fact that real change of sexuality is not really a thing. You can repress it and ignore it, but it was coming out, man. I was busy, charities, I'm dressing up as a clown for the children. I even led a Bible talk in Portuguese. I was impressed with myself at one point, and I was good with like arranging parties and getting on buses and inviting entire bus loads to the church and walking around inviting people to study the Bible. I'd gotten good at that, but it's part of my personality to be able to speak to people. So that wasn't the issue. The issue was when I stopped. As soon as I stopped, I would be in sin, right? Which meant that I would be in the university bathrooms, because them they're hot. The bathroom stalls at the university was enough bullying was going down in there, and blowjobs and sexual things was going down in there all the time. And so realizing suddenly there was a eureka moment where I was like, this thing doesn't change, man. This is just coming out like this because I am trying to push it down instead of manage it again. So I left and gave myself enough space to understand that people have always been afraid of death, and so they've created these stories that favor them because you die and then you're in this amazing place that's heaven, and the Bible has control of the masses, and it's all a thing, man. It's all like a 2-year-old could see through it, see through the farce that it is, the ridiculous stories, the fact that nature don't really care about human morality, and that you don't choose your sexuality, you're just attracted to what you're attracted to, and that's the end. So I've since been back to Brazil. Once I was staying with a friend, and guess who was in the building next door, living in the building next door, JR. We met up at one point. He was seeing someone at the time, and we had dinner together, and that was nice. We've since talked to each other, but I've been keeping my distance because I feel like I have idealized what we had in the past, and I don't want to ruin it by attempting something that might end badly, But yeah, I think I'm gonna put some photos in here after I get his permission of us back in the day, and of him now, because he's such a fox, man. He's a silver fox. At the time I was seeing him, he had like a patch of white in his jet black hair, right? Which is genetic because his father had it. And now he's just white. A beautiful, beautiful man. He's got his last name, Zakshevsky, tattooed across his back. Hot, hot. If you're watching this, JR, I think you're hot. But that's me. That's me. And is he the love of my life? I think that I fantasize him to be, but yeah, man. I don't know. I don't know because I have a different concept of what a relationship should look like. And our relationship was extremely sexual. Now it's more about companionship and an ease of communication and of being with each other. It wouldn't have that energy of youth, that sexual energy, that need to be out in the club and dancing all night and fucking all night, and yeah, it wouldn't have that as much. But anyway, that's my JR story. You can decide for yourself. And tell me about your love stories. I'm interested in that, especially if you're Barbadian, because I think that those stories aren't seen as much. Like, I don't have a Barbadian love story, which I would like to have, but yeah, people too afraid, man. Too afraid.